So what do Rockstar's fans think of the newest installment to Red Dead Online, the Naturalist DLC? Well, we're going to take a look at that in this video. For those who don't know, Red Dead Online just got a brand new, what Rockstar was calling massive DLC into the game. And I mean just recently, like as in 2 or 3 days ago. So let's take a look at what fans are saying in the early hours of the release. I know the hardcore fans will remember this, but for those who have sparingly dabbled with Red Dead Online since its release, the first DLC that released was the Frontier Pursuits DLC. That came with 3 roles. Roles are basically different paths that you can follow in-game, so your cowpoke or cowgirl can have their own unique path. Each of these roles comes with a new core gameplay mechanic, as well as new cosmetic items specific only to that role. And they're all locked behind a paywall, but you can actually earn the currency to pay for that paywall in-game. It just takes a while, so only the dedicated fan will be able to pay for it with that currency. Anyone else who kind of casually checks out the game will probably have to pay for it. Now, following the Frontier Pursuits DLC, there was what was known as the Moonshiners update, which only brought 1 role to the game, but it added properties in with that role, so fans kind of let it slide. Also, the Moonshiners update made the game incredibly buggy and unplayable at times for lots and lots of players. So a lot of eyes were on Rockstar with this new update. It's been 7 months since they've added something into Red Dead Online, and fans were wondering what was going on behind the scenes, only for just 4 days ago, or 5 days ago now, for Rockstar to come out with a post joint announcing Red Dead Online and GTA Online updates, which was an interesting move to say the least. But all of that to say, there is a lot to unpack about how fans were feeling going into this update. We did that right before the update actually came out, and then now the update has released, and with all of this pressure on Rockstar and all of this hype in the community and fans foaming at the mouth, I was curious, and I bet so are you, what fans thought of the new Red Dead Online update. Now, I'll jump into my personal opinions later on in the video, but I have a ton of comments. I actually have 1.7 thousand votes and 184 comments. Obviously, we're gonna sift that down a little bit, but the results of the poll will be at the end of the video, and we're gonna jump into some of these featured comments. But the question was, what do you think of Red Dead Online's new Naturalist role? The top comment here comes from Jack Goodwin, and it says, "It is a good update, but I don't believe it meets everyone's expectations. It won't be liked by people who like killing enemies, etc." We have another top-rated comment here from Scorch, and it says, "Seems okay. I'm just glad to see some bug fixes. Noticed a lot more animal spawns in large lobbies, so that's awesome." And Arthur Morgan, the man himself, says, "I mean, what I do is just expect absolutely nothing from Rockstar, so when we do get something, I'm kind of excited." Now, I want to jump in and unpack these first 3 here. The first one we were talking about from Jack, when he refers to how it doesn't meet everybody's expectations, is incredibly accurate. I think a lot of people were expecting something massive because Rockstar used the term massive in their advertising for the game. However, after seeing the update come out, I think massive was more in reference to all of the bug fixes, because I think there's something like 250 bug fixes with this update. So for them on the back end, that is pretty massive. But for us as players, there's not much new going on. It's just a lot of refinement. So I definitely see what he's talking about. And Scorch kind of echoes that. It's okay, but he's glad to see the bug fixes. And to be honest, the animal spawns in large lobbies is a super big deal for a lot of people, because in general, large lobbies should be what we should all be in. And then finally with Arthur, I would say that's where everyone's at, but to be honest with you, I just don't know if it is, because 10,000 people were refreshing the subreddit waiting for the new Red Dead Online update, and it wasn't all that. I mean, it was cool, don't get me wrong, we have videos coming out about this later. Moving on though, we have another comment here from Arnatar that says, "It's a pretty decent update, but I just can't believe it took them 7 months. Most of it just comes from story mode." I saw a few people echoing this on Twitter. Some people were calling it basically the zoologist update, and I have another thesis on that I want to talk about in a separate video, but in general, I feel like they really did try to make online more like story mode with this update, and I feel like they did a good job of it. Temptation Gaming says, "Honestly, at this point, I expect the bare minimum for Red Dead Online because Grand Theft Auto gets the most love and attention. It's about time we got train and bank heists in Red Dead Online and an actual place to live." And I think that's a really good point. I think it is time that we see some really direct marketing-based attention paid to Red Dead Online, because I think that's the real difference in the two games. I think a lot of the stuff for Grand Theft Auto is a chain of cars dropping that they've had made for the last like 2 years, and they're just continually dropping and making cars at a steady rate. And I think the same thing obviously should be applied to Red Dead Online, but I think a lot of the Twitter posts and a lot of the social media action that Rockstar doesn't take would be super helpful, because in general, Grand Theft Auto gets an extra 2 or 3 posts a week from Rockstar, where Red Dead Online only sees 1. We have another comment here from Tai Wee Pitch that says, "Roll is pretty good. I don't know about the Outlaw Pass though. Kind of a disappointment, to be honest. And if you're curious about what's in the Outlaw Pass or the Roll unlocks, I actually did a video on that yesterday. I'll put a card up in the top corner and a link in the description and pinned comment down below. So if you're curious about any of the cool stuff that came out in this update, or some of the stuff that wasn't so cool, you can go check that video out." Negativatron Prime says, "I just wanted a second character slot. Also, the wagons, when you try to call them, won't spawn." And I didn't know that was a bug, so let me know in the comments down below if you guys are also having that issue. If you are, I will send a complaint to Rockstar. We have another comment here from Dan the Man that I think sums up how a lot of people feel. And it says, "I mean, the role itself is pretty meh, but the trapper, legendary animals, a new customizable bow are my hunter dreams coming true. Still want that outlaw role with heists though." And I think that's what they alluded to in their update Newswire post from a while, or from I guess a week ago now, or 5 days ago, whenever it was, you know what I'm talking about. They said in that post that they have augmentations to an existing role coming soon, and I think that is in reference to the bounty hunter. A lot of people are talking about it like it's in reference to the collector, which I don't think it is. I think it means, hey, we're gonna take the bounty hunter and we're gonna make him a lawman. So that should be coming soon. I know there's a Halloween pass. If you guys don't know about that, we'll talk about it later in another video, but I think it's going to be very cool to see what Rockstar does in the coming months. We have a comment from ... that says, "I like it. It fixed animal spawns and finally gave us some new content." And we have another comment here from Burr that says a similar thing. "I like it. It's pretty chill, not so bloody as the other roles. It's finally challenging. I love it." And we have another comment here talking about how they're just happy the game seems to be in a playable state. And I'm going to feature this one especially because it's from somebody who I follow on Twitter. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, what are you doing? Actually, my @ is @pineappleswagon. Anyway, get on board the wagon. This comment here from The Strange Man says, "It's good. It's unique with its gameplay and enjoyable for the first few times. I think it'll get extremely repetitive soon." And I think that's an interesting point to make about it, right? The initial playthrough is going to be fun, and then after that, it gets a little much. Kind of like the beginning mission of Grand Theft Auto, where the first time, you're like, wow, this is crazy. We're in the snow, a bunch of stuff's happening. Same thing with the first chapter of Red Dead Redemption 2. You're like, whoa, this is crazy. There's a bunch of snow everywhere. But then when you replay it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, it gets a little much. And I think that is a perfect way to sum up some of the things that were introduced in this update. We have a comment here that I think is going to be really, really echoed by a lot of you in the comments, so we're going to feature it here. It says, "I was on for an hour before I went to bed, and I had a hard time figuring out how to get a sample from animals. I got samples from 3 different animals and only got 153 XP from it. I don't know how else to get XP for it. I tried taking a photo, but nothing seemed to pop up saying I got experience, and I can't do the legendary animal missions yet until rank 5, so I'm stumped on what to do to get the XP up. I also don't know how to make money on this role, aside from selling my kills to Gus, but I'd rather take my kills and give them to Crips. I'm torn between supplying my trader table and selling to Gus. I spent 25 gold on the roll and I haven't gotten a penny back from it. I don't know how to feel about it." And I think that's a good point because there is a big learning curve with this role. I personally was a little confused and still am a little confused in some regards. I know a few friends of mine have gotten the hang of it. And I think this is really one where you need to kind of do your research and watch YouTube videos and hang out with your friends and figure it out. And I think Rockstar might have done that on purpose. They might have made it a little confusing just so that we kind of had to do our own digging and talk to other people in the community. But all in all, I wanted to say my thoughts on this are a little varied. I think it's good in some ways and bad in others. We're going to start with the good and save the bad for later, and then we'll talk about the results of the poll. So my thoughts really hone in on a few key things. First off, I want to say I think it's good all around. I think in general to have this in the game is very smart on Rockstar's behalf. I think it's a good add to have a conservationalist be the opposite to the Trapper. I know she's not technically a conservationalist, but you get what I'm saying. I think it's a good way to introduce the Trapper without just like having him show up and being like, oh, this is the Trapper. It's like a cool, you know, it felt organic is what I'm trying to say. And then I also feel like Gus is a better Trapper than the Trapper in the story mode, and I will stand by that. I was a huge fan of the Trapper in the story mode. The Falconer named Jerry was literally what I was hoping the name for the Trapper was going to be. However, I don't know, I like Gus. He's kind of grown on me a little bit. I think he's kind of cool. The tiger line in the cutscene is really good. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not gonna, you know, use it if nobody's seen the line itself, so I'll let you kind of have that. But for me, I thought Gus was a really good ad. I thought Harriet was a really good ad as well. It just felt very story mode-esque for me, so the fact that it got ported into online the way that it did, and even just there I slipped up the way I said ported. It wasn't ported into online, it was built for online, but it felt pulled from story mode, so I think that's a very good thing on Rockstar's behalf. Secondly, I feel like it kind of already should have been in the game, right? Like, I feel like the Trapper and the special outfits and the fact that animals now spawn, all of that should have already been here. So yes, it's good, right? Like, yes, it's a good update. Yes, I'm happy about it, and I actually feel for the first time in a long time, like I can just sit down and play Red Dead Online without, you know, like worrying about anything really. It's just kind of a pleasurable experience to sit down and play the game, whereas before there was, you know, always something I felt like I had to do. There was some sort of chore. I don't know, I actually enjoy this update to a certain degree. It's just I really feel like it should have been added way earlier on in the life cycle, and to have it come after an 8-month drought is just a little I mean, I don't want to say anything other than out of touch. Like, I love Rockstar. I think what they do is great 90% of the time. I think, well, let me rephrase that. I think when they build things, it's good, and then I think when they manage things, it's poor. And I think those two don't necessarily go as hand in hand as a lot of people think they do. And I have had a lot more hope for Rockstar as of late. It does look like with the Halloween pass and with everything that's coming up, like they are really trying to hammer out a really solid set of content for this game and trying to prioritize it for the next gen, which I could not be more excited about. I have a lot of plans for this channel and the character, etc., etc. And I know some of you were thinking like the character, and we'll talk about that in the future, don't you worry. But for now, we are just going to review the results of this poll. So, what do you think of Red Dead Online's new naturalist role? At 1.7 thousand votes, and I know that's a low number for this series. Generally, I let these polls go for longer, but this is a kind of timely video. At 1.7 thousand votes, 27% of you said fire emoji, 8% of you said crying emoji, and 65% of you said shrug emoji, which I think is pretty indicative of how this update came across the board. But that is my time for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Please subscribe if you did, and I will see you very, very soon with a brand new Red Dead Redemption 2 video. Alright, peace.